It's time to eat.
What are you hungry for?
Sit down and get ready to consume an abundance of fantasy football knowledge from Ross Tucker and John Daigle.
Feed me now. I'm starving.
On the Fantasy Feast Eatin' podcast.
Yeah, let's eat, baby. It is the Fantasy Feast Eatin' podcast. We are presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years. Those of you that check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL can see those teams. Now I call games on television, the Eagles in the preseason, but then CBS, and then on the radio side, Westwood One. It is an awesome job. Love it. Love all these podcasts. I thought Greg Cosell was phenomenal this morning, talking about the wide receiver fits for the rookies. So we'll probably put that on this feed as well, on the Fantasy Feast feed, so you guys can hear Greg's thoughts on some of the wide receivers from a schematic fit for these rookies with their new teams. Steve Fezzik, obviously, we are all over the schedule release stuff, and I had a great conversation on yesterday's Even Money podcast with Steve about an NFL bet he's already made and about how he is going to attack the schedule release on Wednesday night. Thinks about 20 bets, 14 on individual games, 6 on season win totals is his best guess. This show is the Fantasy Feast. The star of the show is John Daigle, at not J Daigle on social media. He's one of the owners over at EstablishTheRun.com, where I'm like amazed and very thankful that they gave us the code FEAST. That's a 20% discount on, by far, easily the most and best information that's out there for prop bets and fantasy stuff, including what we're doing right now, right? So we started last week with receivers. Today we're doing running backs. We are looking at an approximation of the fantasy value for all of these rookies based upon, now that we know where they landed, right? Now that we know their teams. Today will be running backs. You can check out wide receivers last week. I don't know if we need 2 episodes or just 1 for quarterbacks and tight ends. John and I can discuss that next week. But today's running backs. Now, John, there is a ton of running backs that got drafted, okay? But you sent me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 10 to 12 that you wanted to talk about. So just, why don't we start there? Who are these 10 to 12 compared to the other ones that we're not going to discuss?
Especially for season-long leagues, as we approach August and the heart of fantasy football, day 1 and 2 running backs that get drafted in the first 3 rounds, everyone needs to be aware of. Beyond that, though, if you get drafted on day 3, you're already fighting so many uphill battles between teams having already questioned your talent and usability on that roster, even so much as a player then probably starting as a 3rd or 4th string option, probably being inactive on game days the first month of the year. So it's hard, especially in season long, to really have any amount of confidence in guys who get drafted on day 3, unfortunately. That's when rookie drafts come into play. So we'll talk about a few of the guys that I've been hammering in the rounds 4 and 5 of rookie drafts that I have some confidence in based on their profiles, because that's when it really comes in handy, is knowing what these players are and what they did in college. Other than that, though, for season long, again, those day 3 guys just have ice skating uphill, immense battles to face before they come fantasy relevant for our purposes.
You know what's crazy too, just thinking about it, John? It's like lottery tickets. I mean, these day 3 running backs, most of them are never going to play. I mean, right. Never really meaningfully play. But then 1 or 2 could be league winners, like this year, you know? But there's just, how do you know who that is? They wouldn't be a league winner if we all knew right now who they were going to be.
Right, and that's where I will speak on them quickly at the end of the show, just based on their profiles and who I have the most confidence in.
All right, so let's start with the first rounders. We thought that there would be 3. I thought there'd be 3. I thought TreVeyon Henderson would sneak up in there into the first round. He did not. Ashton Jeanty went top 10. Omarion Hampton went 22 to the Chargers. But we will start with Jeanty because he's going to be this. I mean, he's going to get drafted high. The question is how high, John, and how deserving is he of being drafted that high?
I just did my first season-long draft of the season with a bunch of sharps, and Jeanty went with the top 5 pick over Saquon Barkley. Right now, if you're in another type of season-long format, Jeanty usually goes at the end of the first round. Either way, though, when everyone shows up to their home leagues, Jeanty's going to be a top 12 pick in fantasy, and deservedly so. The resume speaks for itself. He turned 397 touches this past year, an absurd number, into 7 yards per carry. So despite having that volume, was still insanely efficient, and into a class high 4.7 yards after contact per run because he's a machine after the first tackle attempt. He was also responsible for 42% of Boise State's yards on offense. Just a workhorse that we dream about in fantasy. We know this offense under Pete Carroll and year one under offensive coordinator Chip Kelly is going to at least attempt to run through the rushing game, and Jeanty in particular, especially with only 33-year-old Raheem Mostert challenging Jeanty for touches. My one question is, despite wanting to run the ball, is their defense good enough to allow them to run the ball? We will probably see this offense have to lean on the passing game more than expected through Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, the list goes on, if only because I question their secondary and the talent they have there. But if all things considered, they're allowed to run the ball, that's what they want to do, and Jeanty is going to be a 3-down back for this team. So he's definitely going to be a first-round option for us.
Wow. So there's a lot of good stuff there. I mean, a lot of good stuff. That's a terrific point about their defense. You know, they might be behind in a bunch of games. Mm-hmm. I will say this, Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, no question they want to run the ball. I mean, Pete Carroll loves it, defensive-minded guy. And Chip Kelly, you know, it kind of got lost in the shuffle, but whether it's college or NFL, he likes to kind of spread and shred, you know, spread you out, the up-tempo stuff, and then shred. So they both do want to run the football. It doesn't matter for a one-year sample, John, but I have one concern about Jeanty. He doesn't make that many guys miss. Like, he's an incredible tackle breaker, maybe as good as I've ever seen, but the guys at the next level are better at tackling, and they hit harder. And, you know, I'm just saying from a dynasty perspective, I just wonder, like, he's going to take a lot of hits with his style, and it's going to be awesome and fun to watch these first couple years. But I guess I would just say, John, I have some concerns about him, like second contract, long term, because of the fact he doesn't really make guys miss. He bounces off of them or runs through them, which is awesome, but that wears on you.
My concern is more in the Raiders' offensive line. This is not a Barkley being dropped behind the best offensive line in the league situation like with Philadelphia last year. This is Jeanty behind a very poor offensive line in Las Vegas. And the one blemish on his resume is that he wasn't that good of a pass catcher last year. Quite a few drops on his resume, not to mention that he wasn't an efficient pass catcher either. Again, I really don't have any concerns. I'd still take him first overall in any rookie draft, but if we're trying to nitpick, those are the items I'm nitpicking.
Okay, the other first round pick was Omarion Hampton from North Carolina. He goes to the Chargers, who pretty clearly wanted a running back, but they also signed Najee Harris as a free agent. So what does that mean for Hampton's rookie season fantasy prognosis?
Everyone wants an immediate answer, but fantasy football happens in windows, especially for rookies who tend to break out in the second half of the season whenever they earn more opportunity. Having said that, although Najee Harris does seem like he'll have a window the first couple months of the season, especially in pass pro, that's where Hampton can continue to improve and where Najee will likely earn reps over Hampton to begin the year. The fact is that this team showed us they want their identity to be running the ball. As much as Jim Harbaugh loves Justin, as much as he loves his quarterback, Justin Herbert, the fact is that, remember, before their bye last year, the Chargers had the highest run played in the league. They ran the ball on 52% of their offensive plays. Then they came out and had to pass the ball because they realized they could not run the ball efficiently whatsoever. So much so that their two leading running backs from last year, both Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, are still free agents. They didn't even bring them back because they said, we clearly cannot run the ball, which is why they signed Najee Harris to only a one-year deal and now have Omarion Hampton. Hampton does profile as a three-down option in the future. 5'11", 221 pounds, ran a 4.46 40-yard dash, 2,000 yards from scrimmage last year, was an amazing pass-catching option as well. And so there's no doubt in my mind he's eventually going to be a three-down workhorse. But out the gates, Najee Harris does do enough things well to where he probably will be a roadblock the first couple months of the season. So I still want Hampton in season long as a third or fourth round pick and someone who can win your league down the stretch, but Harris will still be involved out the gates.
It is schedule release week in the NFL. What does that mean? It's the perfect time for you to book hotel rooms, for you to figure out what games you're going to go to with your buddies. The good news is you don't have to figure out what you're going to drink. You're going to drink Smirnoff. It's the world's #1 vodka. It's an official vodka partner of the NFL and this show, which I greatly appreciate. That tells you how smart the people are at Smirnoff that they sponsor this show. Grab a bottle of Smirnoff at your local retailer. Here's the key. Head to Smirnoff.com to find recipes of delicious cocktails perfect for game day. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff #21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Please not share with anyone under legal drinking age. Got it. So we feel good about Hampton, second half of the year, playoffs, etc.
Oh, yeah.
All right. That's a good point, by the way, about the blitz pickup. Let's get to day 2 and the Browns. So interesting, number one, that they took Quinshon Judkins instead of TreVeyon Henderson, his Ohio State teammate, who both went in the 30s. But also, they then took Dylan Sampson in the 4th round out of Tennessee. So I was curious to get your thoughts on Judkins from a fantasy perspective, obviously, John.
Lots of odd things in the Browns draft, including drafting Dylan Gabriel on top of Shedeur Sanders, drafting Dylan Sampson on top of Quinshon Judkins. But the fact is that Judkins still got the draft capital that we covet far more than Dylan Sampson. And you don't even have to rewrite. If you wrote a Browns team preview last year, you don't even have to rewrite the running back section because Quinshon Judkins is Nick Chubb. Cleveland clearly has a type, with Judkins checking it at 6 foot, 221 pounds, ran a 4.48 40 time at the combine, and benched 225 pounds 24 times in front of everyone. He had 16 touchdowns in all 3 collegiate seasons, not to mention 290-plus touches at 19 and 20 years old. Again, a short, explosive running back, heavy one. This is just Nick Chubb all over again, who threatens Jerome Ford's workload since they showed last year, the Browns did. They just want Ford to be a rotational back and serve more as their third down option. So Judkins can still very much lead this team in early down carries. Ford can come in and be the pass-catching back since Judkins didn't earn targets in college either. I think they complement each other well, and Judkins will certainly be a RB3 with upside in season long for us.
Not worried about Sampson.
Not worried about Sampson at all, no. Not the 2-round disparity. I know it may not seem much on the surface, but it's a pretty big deal historically when you look at these things.
I guess I'm just wondering, the Browns don't look at it that way. I know they had Sampson ranked high. Mm-hmm. They think there was value there, so they took him. But that's surprising to me, to take a guy in the high in the 2nd that you think is the guy, and then you turn right around again and take another guy in the 4th. But maybe they felt like they needed a number 3 running back too, right? They wanted a couple guys clearly to go with Ford.
For sure, especially without Deontay Foreman. Pierre Strong is still a questionable backup option, so they needed the depth. But again, they did some weird things in this draft, Gabriel and Sanders included. So I am trying to remove myself from overthinking what the Browns did.
What about TreVeyon Henderson and his spot with the Patriots?
It's a terrific landing spot for the entire organization. Ramondre Stevenson was one of the least explosive running backs in the league last year and led his position with 6 fumbles, whereas TreVeyon Henderson last season, 7.6 yards per touch. And unlike his Ohio State teammate, Judkins, who we just discussed, Henderson also had 19 catches in 3 or 4 seasons in college. Had an issue staying healthy up until last year, but that's when, obviously, when he was healthy, he was at his most explosive. And really, no competition, honestly, that can do everything he does. Antonio Gibson has had a terrible run out so far for his entire career across Washington and New England, but has really been pigeonholed to be strictly a pass-catching option, whereas Henderson is better at that, and Henderson is more explosive on early downs than Stevenson. So absolutely love Henderson's outlook here for the future, for the end of the season, for us in the fantasy playoffs, and more importantly for Drake May, who's going to be one of the better values in fantasy this year, currently being drafted as a QB2, but obviously with his rushing upside will threaten low-end QB1 status every single week. So Drake May was one of the big winners, including the addition of Henderson, of the offseason.
What do you mean by Antonio Gibson's run out? What does that mean?
As in between injuries, being pigeonholed as a third down option in the league, I think it's someone who has not gotten a fair shake for what he was at Memphis and just who he is as a player, because he's massive. Like, he is the size of Omarion and Hampton, but has really never been trusted as a 3-down back, and when he was trusted, he never stayed healthy. So I just think someone who had a bad run of luck throughout his career.
The next second-round pick was a little bit of a surprising one to some people. R.J. Harvey for the Broncos. A lot of people thought they might take TreVeyon Henderson in the first round or even Hampton. They didn't. They come back in the second round, take R.J. Harvey out of Central Florida.
And Sean Payton knows how to hype up the guys that he selected. Whenever he took Pat Bryant later on, he compared him to Michael Thomas immediately. Not sure I believe that, but that's what at least what he said, Peyton did. And then with R.J. Harvey, he said he spent 48 hours watching his tape, just glued to Harvey's film. And so obviously fell in love with the player, and it's easy to see why. Over the last 2 years, R.J. Harvey, 143 broken tackles. Just an absolute machine after contact. Also put up 16 reps at the combine and the bench press, and had at least 19 catches in all 3 seasons he spent at Central Florida. Harvey does profile as someone who can be a 3-down back, and given the capital, given the hype that Peyton gave him, although Peyton did run a committee the first couple of years we saw him in Denver, I do think Harvey can eventually win that role. The issue right now, at least in rookie drafts, is that it does take a very early pick. It takes a mid-first round selection to basically overdraft, to reach for Harvey. And that's something I'm not really investing in, especially when Emeka Egbuka, Matthew Golden are still there on the board in rookie drafts. For season-long leagues, though, it's going to take a 4th or 5th round selection. And as an RB2 or RB3 with upside, I don't necessarily hate it, but the price is expensive and something worth considering as we move along. But certainly, with only Audric Estime there to block him, like, we really don't think Harvey has competition in week 1.
What about Kaleb Johnson in Pittsburgh with Jaylen Warren?
It was always going to take Kaleb Johnson falling into the right system, since he was a running back that was basically only successful in zone-heavy schemes. But fortunately for him, that is exactly what Arthur Smith runs in Pittsburgh, is a zone-heavy scheme. Not only that, but much similar to how Judkins profiles exactly as Nick Chubb, so we know how the Browns are going to use him, Kaleb Johnson profiles exactly to Najee Harris. So we know exactly how the Steelers want to use him as well, especially since they clearly don't trust a satellite back like Jaylen Warren. And Kaleb Johnson's lone year as the starter at Iowa last season, 23 touchdowns and a career-high 10.4% target share. I don't think you could even script a better landing spot for Kaleb Johnson in his rookie year. And so given that we only have Warren to worry about on passing downs, I do think it's a terrific run out for Kaleb Johnson to get touches from week 1 on.
Wow. So how high are you taking him?
Right now, he still goes well behind RJ Harvey just because, again, Harvey doesn't have competition. Kaleb still has this pass catching back and Warren to be concerned about. But I would say Kaleb right now is a 6th, 7th round pick in season long.
I love when the NFL schedule gets released. It's like you're planning when you're going to drink Labatt Blue and drink beer. You now know, Bills fans especially, but all of you, when you can do it, and then go to the website, snap a photo of your receipt, upload it instantly to rack up points for exclusive merch. I already got the incredible fridge. The next thing, I need to get that bag. I need to get the cooler bag. It's buy beer, get gear. Go to rewards.labattusa.com to sign up. Got it. And I agree in terms of him as a zone runner, which is also what they do at Iowa, which is why he had the year that he had. All right. There were a bunch of guys that went on day 3.
Yep.
And there are some that jump out to you more than others. And we'll start with Tuten. I don't even know how to say his first name. I haven't heard it. Bhayshul? Bhayshul? I don't know. Tuten, the Jaguars speedster.
Bhayshul Tuten, who profiled as the most athletic running back in combine history. 100 percentile athleticism because at 206 pounds, he ran a 4.32 40-yard dash. He was also this class's only back to have a 40-plus inch vertical. And similar to Jeanty after contact, Tuten averaged 4.4 yards after contact per carry, despite dealing with injuries last year. And so if he can earn an opportunity in Jacksonville, then he's someone who can, like Isaac Guerendo, just explode every time he touches the ball, which is also what led us to be high on Guerendo last year as a backup in San Francisco. And the good news is that under Liam Cohen, he's not attached to any of these running backs right now. Travis Etienne is on the final year of his contract. Tank Bigsby was not under Liam Cohen's regime. And so this is the first hand-picked running back for Cohen to decide what to do with. And in his post-draft press conference, he did mention finding ways. He understands Tuten's explosiveness and finding ways to get him in the open field. And guys like this, again, regardless of what the depth chart shows out the gates in week 1, it's just someone you cross your fingers and take a chance on. So I do think Tuten can be a last-round selection in season-long leagues where you just stash him on your bench, and a strong rookie draft selection.
How about Devin Neal with the Saints?
Much like Cohen handpicking a running back, Kellen Moore is not attached to any of these guys on the current depth chart. Alvin Kamara will still probably be an every down option, but we also know Kamara has historically dealt with injuries, and the Saints had never had anyone to truly rely on behind him. But now you would think in drafting Devin Neal, like then he can be that guy ahead of Kendre Miller, who time and time again has just gotten injured and thus lost his opportunity. And so I would think Devin Neal will play himself into an immediate backup role. And then if Kamara were to get injured in like the twilight year, possibly his last season in New Orleans, then it would be Neal who is the next man up.
So 2 other guys I have to ask you about. One is my guy, Cam Skattebo from the Giants, and just what you see from him. Obviously, he's so fun to watch.
Yeah, he's fun to watch, but I do think he's a concerning player at the next level. Not only because, like, at this stage of their careers, Tyrone Tracy was the significantly better prospect, like lapped Cam Skattebo in terms of athleticism and everything we look for and being high on in season-long and rookie drafts. But also it sounds like, per like Jordan Renan, Giants reporter at ESPN, it sounds like Skattebo right now at least is going to open as the 3-down back, the pass-catching option. The concern is, though, he was one of the worst running backs in pass protection in the entire nation. And so I don't know necessarily how he earns touches over the more explosive player who was very good last year in Tyrone Tracy, unless Tracy's injured. And so he's someone I'm actually lower on in rookie drafts. Like you, I loved watching him in college. Like a player that I would take time out to catch every single Arizona State game in the evening because he was just James Conner. He would just handle the ball and run over players. But again, I don't think he can do that with his profile at the next level. So just someone's journey I'll be very interested to see play out.
Yeah, the third down back thing doesn't make a ton of sense to me with Tracy being the former wide receiver at Purdue and so good out of the backfield. I don't really understand that part of it. A lot of people didn't understand why the Cowboys didn't draft a running back earlier, but then they did get Jaydon Blue from Texas who can fly.
And Jaydon Blue doesn't have many touches on his resume, but remember, at Texas, he did play behind Roschon Johnson, Jonathan Brooks, and Bijan Robinson for his entire career. I also, at his size, his smaller stature, we've seen players like Devon Achane and Bucky Irving have immense success these recent years. Smaller running backs are finding ways to stay healthy. Achane in particular put on the Guardian cap and then didn't suffer a concussion or get injured afterwards. And so, with only Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders thwarting Jaydon Blue from having success and Blue being a pass-catching back, I do want to be very open-minded and say, as a last-round pick in season long, as a fourth-round rookie draft selection, at least Jaydon Blue has a role, can carve out a path for multiple outs in fantasy as Dallas's third down option, and then hopefully earn carries from there. I want to ignore his box scores from the past years, given the competition he was playing with at Texas.
You got to check him out on social media. As you can tell, nobody knows their stuff like this guy. At not J Daigle. Of course, establishtheRun.com. Make sure you use that code FEAST. Love those of you that watch us on YouTube, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. Make sure you subscribe and turn the notifications on. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We are at Ross Tucker Pod. I'm stuffed. We're done. QBs, tight ends, or both next week.
Thanks for tuning in to Fantasy Feast. Make sure to also check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Even Money, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.